All right, everyone. It is 2:08. Thank you for your patience and welcome to this discussion on the Horse Protection Act. We've invited two speakers today to talk to us about the Horse Protection Act, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Scott Dornkamp. Scott, you want to give a brief introduction to yourself while I keep on letting people in and help me out here?
All right. My name's Scott Dornkamp. I'm the government relations manager, livestock welfare program manager with the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association.
All righty. And also our speaker today is Dave Duquette from Western Justice. David, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about your organization?
Sure. Hi, Bill. Thanks for everybody for coming on and listening to this. My name is Dave Duquette. I run Western Justice, a founder. I left Protect the Harvest in 2020, and at the behest of a lot of our big donors in the horse industry, they were very adamant about me not being out of the fight. So they enticed me into starting Western Justice, and we've gone whole hog with it, and it's been a good run so far.
Great. Before I get into some of the questions that we want to ask that we published, and I think Dave, you got them, Scott, you got them. You're okay with all those, and we should be able to move right along. I'm hoping that all of you took a little bit of time before this meeting and actually Googled the Horse Protection Act. And if you did that, you would find that this is an act that occurred back in 1970. And it is not something that's brand new. It is an act to protect animals, to protect horses in our industry. And it had primarily to do with the soring, the technique or the process of soring of Tennessee walking horses. That's how I always remembered it. There's a lot of other people that can give long and lengthy explanations of it, but it's just. What's come about is some amendments to this act, and there have been other amendments over the years, but the latest amendments seem to have are taking a little bit of issue with our existing belief in the act and what it is all about. So, saying that, let's just go through the questions. I'd like to give you a little bit of commercial here. All of you that aren't members of the Colorado Horse Council, in order for us to continue serving you and being part of your equine world, we would ask you that you make sure you keep supporting the Colorado Horse Council and become a member. You can see a QR code up there. If you just click on that QR code, you can become a member right away. And I tested that link, and I know that link works. So anyway, let's start off with our first question. Knowing what the Horse Protection Act is about, we want to address what are the key changes and impacts. What are the most significant amendments to the Horse Protection Act, and how will they affect enforcement and compliance within the equine industry? Scott, you want to go first?
Sure. Dave's probably the better expert at this on the historical aspect of it, but this came about last year in May, and the USDA and APHIS rewrote the Horse Protection Act and basically rewrote it where it was no longer they were not considering soring anymore, which is an intentional act of making your horse soar. When it was originally written, if I'm not mistaken, it was to make your horse have an exaggerated gait. They rewrote it now where is your horse sore, not did you soar him, which is a complete paradigm shift from where it was. And they had last year they had a comment period in May. And after the comment period, they came out with final rule sometime around October. Maybe I might have come out a little bit sooner than that. And what came out on rule was not what was available to be commented on. And it This took in the entire horse industry, with the exceptions of rodeos, parades, trail rides, and anything, a speed event like racing. And it was, in my opinion, it was set past act, did not get passed through legislative process. So the USDA decided they were going to rewrite the rules to enforce it themselves. Now, I might be a little bit off on that, but that's pretty much the synopsis. And I started warning people way back. I started warning our people that had fairs and things like that this was going to affect their 4-H horse shows, things like that. And people just kind of looked at me with a raised eyebrow. But then when it showed up, they were like, oh my God. So I'll let Dave take it from there.
All right, David, up to you.
Okay, so just to reiterate Scott's comment there, I for probably the past 14 years we've been fighting this back, this PAST Act, and they did move it into a regulatory. It's basically the PAST Act in a regulatory form. So they couldn't get the PAST Act passed. The last Trump administration basically washed out and got rid of the PAST Act. So they came back with a regulatory form this time to try to get it done. And that's exactly where they went. And they've got, friends. I have a lot of contacts in DC, and they've got friends that are working, and even some of our own groups that are supposed to be protecting us are working with the Humane Society, with ASPCA, with those other groups, and they built this. And the Tennessee Walking Horse Association, those folks tried to get involved, and they were shut down. They were pushed out. So that's where the lawsuit came from. They actually wanted to amend the rules and make them more fair, and the inspection process more fair and less arbitrary. And they were fine with it. But this, where this thing blew up, and I'll give a brief history of what went on and what I know what happened here. In May, when they put this out for comments, it wasn't exactly, it wasn't what we see now and what we saw Dr. Reiner and the US APHIS put out as the final rule. And what they did was regulatory wise, they took this, they put it out for public comment. They got 8,500 or something like that comments. Over 7,000 of them were a form letter from Humane Society backers. So they all kind of went in one pile, and we could figure that stuff out pretty handily through our sources. So they got those comments, and what they're supposed to do is take those comments and adjust that new rule in their best ability to the comments that they receive. Well, we've been pushing and pushing and pushing to get that new rule and what they were adjusting it to for the comments, but the APHIS and Dr. Reiner were hiding this for a long time. It was being hidden. I don't think they would have put it out. The bare minimum they would have had to put it out before the final rule took effect, which probably would have been, January 20th or January, in that area. They would have published the final rule. And the rule that came out and the adjustments they made to that rule, we found that the only reason Western Justice was able to blow this up back in 1st October was because of being privy to actual court documents and testimony under oath in the hearing of the Tennessee Walkers lawsuit, but also in the House Oversight Committee hearing and the under oath testimony that was going on there. So Dr. Reiner came out and said the exact things that we talked about, and everything we put out, we have receipts for, and we have the ability to back up what we were saying. And it kind of took the horse industry by storm because nobody knew what was going on. AQHA didn't know. Nobody, Pain Horse, none of the organizations knew what that final rule was looking like. We didn't know what it looked like until after January when it came out. And that was because Dr. Reiner was trying, and the APHIS was being disingenuous, and they were trying to hide these new rules that basically made it to where riding a horse could be considered an act of soaring. So in other words, you walk into the pen on a sound horse, you come out, your horse is lame because it clipped its bulb or did something going down the fence or cutting or whatever it was doing, and you come out, you're in violation of soaring your horse under the Horse Protection Act at that point. So that was the basic crux of it. Now, I don't know if you want to go into where we're at right now, but do you want to ask another question, or did that answer what you were looking for?
I want to add something to what Dave just said, because I don't think that everybody realizes this. I want to reiterate, the USDA and APHIS kept everybody in the dark about what was coming. And they would not have put out the rule, like Dave said, if there hadn't have been such an uproar. Because we kind of knew what they were going to do, but they were very, I guess, disingenuous is a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question here, and you can put your questions in the chat and I'll read them. But the question that we have, which section of the new rules implies that riding horses could be a violation?
I'd have to go. I'd have to go back and look at the exact section because the Horse Protection Act is so big. But the new rule, there's very specific wording, and I don't want to get it wrong.
Okay. So another follow-up question on that. So the amendments are already in law, not proposed, correct?
No, it's not in law until it's it's an approved rule, and until it goes to the registry and gets registered, it's not law. It is not law yet. And what we're looking at right now, because of that lawsuit that the Tennessee Walking Groups filed and the judgment that came out against 4 of the key amendments in this new rule, it's highly likely that this new rule will just get totally shelved, and it will go back to the drawing board, and they'll go start working on a new rule. So they have USDA APHIS right now is doing its due diligence on this, and I would like to say we have a lot of very friendly people in there now, and they're not going to allow this thing to go the way it is. And because of the new rule, it gives the lawsuit and the way the ruling on the lawsuit was, it gives the USDA all the horsepower they need to pull this back and get rid of it, and then go back to the drawing board for a new rule. So that's
I don't think we explained that either in this. There was a lawsuit brought against USDA that just got adjudicated, whatever you want to say, and it threw out everything in the new rule except for the inspectors. Am I right on that, Dave?
Yep. Yeah, they wanted to go a different way with inspectors, but they threw out the action pack devices and pads and substances that exceeded statutory authority. The new SCAR rule, they threw that out because it was ambiguous on dermatological conditions indicative of soaring, but it was so ambiguous that anything, a little scar that's been there forever, or a abrasion or a bell boot rub, could cause you to be disqualified. So, those things being kicked out of this thing took enough meat out of it to be able to take this rule and make it go away and be rewritten. So my sources and my folks within USDA that I know and have been working on this since a month prior to the election, so in October, have said that they're going to make sure this thing gets done correctly if it's done at all. So I feel very strongly that we have a really good chance to slow this down, but also it's a critical point for us in the horse industry to all come together and say, we're going to stop this. We're going to go get this thing amended. We got to go to Congress to amend the Horse Protection Act or get rid of it. Now, when I say that, I get a lot of people comments online and stuff like that about, oh, so Western Justice is for soring of horses. We're not for soring. We've never been for soring, and it's unilaterally disparaged all over the horse industry, even from the Tennessee walking groups. And I keep going back to this, the Tennessee walking horse, USDA's own stats have them at a 98.4% compliance rate with regulatory issues. What other industry in the United States of any kind has a 98.4% regulatory compliance rate? Not very many. So that right there tells you that, and there's people out there, even at the major vet organizations, that'll say soaring's still rampant and going all over. Okay, we got rules to deal with those people. There's laws to deal with those people. So deal with them. You know, that we don't need this to drift out into the rest of the horse industry to be able to correct find a problem. Like Scott said it really well one time. They're not looking for soaring when they go to a cow horse show. They're looking for a problem to try to fix and to make themselves relevant. And Dr. Reiner even said that in his public testimony or his under oath testimony, that they were actually wanting to drift out into the rest of the horse industry so they could remain relevant, because they know they've got the Tennessee walkers at this 98.4% compliance rate, and they need to remain relevant. Their horse program at APHIS has to remain relevant. So they needed to drift it out into the rest of the horse industry and build their group in the government bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, as we're seeing right now in this administration, that's not going to fly very well. And as long as the industry comes together and says, hey, we have laws, we have rules, we have all kinds of stewards and people that take care of this stuff. We have lameness checks before they go in to the pen at AQHA, NRHA, NRCHA, NCHA. All of the major organizations already have a steward sitting there to check their horses before they go in. And we need to be self-policing and tell them we don't need the federal government to come do this.
Good points, Dave.
Hey, Bill, I want to answer that question.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Scott. Go.
About riding being considered soaring. If you go to the Horse Protection Act and look in the definition section and go to section 4, because it is a practice that can reasonably be expected to cause physical pain or distress. So that's part of it. And for the people that have said that, the argument that the inspectors are not doing their jobs, prove it.
Well, and the other thing there is too is USDA, whether you read into what they're saying in the Horse Protection Act and this new rule, on their webinar that they did about this, I was driving through Colorado, as a matter of fact, coming home, and I was on that webinar. Scott was on that webinar. They said those exact words. They talked about that on that webinar.
And one of the big things with this new Horse Protection Act that a bunch of us realized, but not everybody else is, I guess, paying attention to, is you had no recourse if you were found in violation. There was no due process. If they said you were guilty and it was all based on an opinion of an inspector, you were guilty.
Hey, gentlemen, all good points. I'm going to read a couple of these questions, and I just want either one of you to respond to them. And then maybe we'll get back on track with our other questions, because there's some good things out here. They're all in the chat. One of the questions that came up here is that we run a horse club that puts on horse shows. Do we need to notify somebody about our shows? And how do we notify them? we are required to have someone. Are we required to have someone to oversee? We have 6 scheduled shows this summer. So this regulation has been postponed till April 1st, correct? Or is April 21st?
April 2nd, yeah.
April
And I would say, and I've told everybody from the Fort Worth Stock Show to everybody that has called me, do not, this is not a rule. It's not in place. Do not poke your head up and say anything. It is not a regulation you have to follow. There's nobody going to come and get you or fine you because of it. So do not even poke your head up. Don't open yourself up to scrutiny by USDA or have them put you on a list until it is mandated by law to do it. It is not a law. It is not going to, they can't do anything about it except for try to bully you into doing something. And right now, they're not doing it.
Okay. The other one is that the argument is that the current inspectors are not reporting violations. What's your response to that?
I've got an answer for that. Which current inspectors? If you know of current inspectors who are not enforcing that law, name them. Name them. We need to quit as an industry saying that, oh, I know this happens somewhere. We all know this happens. We got to quit that.
You know, we've fought off a big fight in the city of LA where they're trying to ban rodeo. And we've walked into meetings with our statistics on injuries to outs at a rodeo. And it's what is that rate? 0.05%, Scott, in the PRCA and the PBR. They're almost identical. So we walk in and we sit down and we expect politicians to understand our statistics and to listen to us and not listen to the animal rights groups who say 40 to 50% of the animals are hurt. Those animals are all inspected by a state vet at all PRCA rodeos. So those animals, if you think a state veterinarian, a veterinarian is going to risk his license to protect a rodeo and pad their numbers, you're sorely mistaken. They're not going to go do that. And they have to respond. They have to report to, like in California, to the agricultural department. They got to put in a report 5 days. I think it's 5 days after. Within 5 days after the rodeo. What's that?
48 hours.
Yeah. So 2 days after, they have to file a report. So if you think that inspectors are going to risk their license, risk all of that, especially if they're a veterinarian, that's a pretty big risk for them to take.
Okay, good.
That's a pretty big accusation.
Yeah, and like I said, I started to say that, but we got to go off of what USDA's own stats on this. And if they're saying there's 98.4% compliance rate, by God, that's what we're going to stick to.
Got it. We do have a comment, a question here from Adam from CSU. He agrees with us. He asks, is CHC or PRCA part of the coalition that's part of this lobbying group? Did you see that question, Scott?
There's a few different ones.
Okay.
And yes on some, no on others.
Okay. And Adam,
I'm going to say this right now.
CHC is not part of any coalition right now. Another question: how does this affect older horses with known impairments being part therapeutic, riding, 4-H, etc. programs? Many older horses are on medication, but have perfectly good lives.
Well, serviceably sound. How is this going to affect the serviceably sound horses that are veterans that need to use them for therapy and any other kind of therapeutic riding? They're serviceably sound, and all of us as horse people know those horses. I've got one standing here that's he's won a ton and in the cow horse, and he'll be here forever. And yeah, you have to give him something to make him feel good to go riding, but he wants out of the pasture and wants to at least stand in the arena. And those horses will be I mean, nobody's thought this through. They will be subject to being a wasted horse that stands in the pasture forever if this thing goes through.
And to add to that, let's say, and I've said this since we found out about it. So say your 12-year-old daughter goes to the local queen contest at the county fair, and she's riding your 20-some-year-old team roping horse that you have to give a little butte to because he's got some arthritis or something. If she walks in there and he comes out limping, she is in violation of the HPA. It does not affect, right now, it does not affect actual rodeo events or anything with a speed aspect to it, like horse racing. But queen contests, the Weston Airs from Denver, they could come in and inspect your halter class, anything that you would be showing something.
Well, anything, that's why the High School Rodeo Association is so adamant about this also, because their equestrian events are not covered events versus and they've got cutting, reined cow horse, and right now they've got reined cow horse as an excluded event, which they're calling it a speed event. But I guarantee you, as soon as they figure out reined cow horse isn't a speed event, it's going to be listed under the and words matter. When USDA puts something out, you have to look at all the words and understand what they're saying. And they say on that list of these are examples of exempted, or these are examples of, ones that fall under the HPA. So they can maneuver that list around anytime they want.
So the final question here in the chat, so kids can be penalized? No, it's their parents.
Or the sponsors,
or the sponsors,
or the sponsors, the show management.
Yeah, it goes right down the line. I'm going to not change the subject. We can always come back. I'm going to ask the next question. Regulatory challenges. How will the amendments address current gaps or weaknesses in the act, and what challenges might arise in implementing these changes? There's been a lot of people saying, how are they going to do this? Tell us about it, guys.
Well, primary, and I'll let Scott talk a little bit about this too, but what they're going to do is they're going to require you to be in the show management to be responsible. They don't have inspectors to do, a 1/100th of the amount of horse shows that are out there. So every show manager is going to be responsible. And then that brings in the liability to the horse, or all the sponsors and everything else. And what's going to happen is the way they've got this written, it will allow some Karen at the horse show to show up, some animal rights person, and claim that there's a problem with a horse, or a problem with this horse, and this horse. And they'll be then the USDA has to weigh whether or not they're going to go do something about it, find the show manager or whatever. If it's not written in their show management or their report on the show. So not only is the show management going to have to do a bunch of extra work and a bunch of paperwork just to put on a little podunk 4-H show, but they're also going to have to be responsible to say, oh, that horse is a little sore. And like Scott was talking about, you get some little kid at a 4-H show going in on a lame horse, or a horse that has a gimp. And then what are they supposed to do to those people that this poor little kid is just trying to get in the industry and go out there and show? What's going to happen? It's going to ruin all of our youth stuff, or a lot of it.
And I don't know if everybody has read it, but they impound that horse.
Yeah, they can impound it for 24 hours.
Yeah, but
they can
one
impound
of the things we haven't talked about on this either is this covers horse sales as well. So say you're the manager and you decide to be your own inspector, you're taking on all the responsibility. So if a horse gets sold at that sale and whoever buys him takes him home and whatever, and he shows up lame, you're part of the responsibility now because you didn't do your inspection correctly.
Good points, good points. Question here. It sounds like we are all in agreement that this would be incredibly detrimental if we moved to a law. I am quite relieved to hear your clarification that it is not a law, and after what the Walking Horse Association has started, it is sounding like these changes will not become law as stated. What can or should we be doing specifically to help ensure that these do not become law as written?
Well, one of the
Better get
things,
hold of your representatives and senators.
so in the next day or so, we're going to have on our website, Western Justice, our C4 website, which is the main one that's on Facebook and all that. We're going to have the ability, we're going to have a form letter, and we have the top form letter or ability data. Well, I don't even know what to call it. The best vehicle for you to go on and take our letter, and it'll send it in, and it changes it just a tiny bit for each one so that it doesn't get put in a form letter kind of a situation. But we're going to have a letter. You can write your own or you can use ours, and we're going to have that. And you go on, and it'll take 15 seconds if you want to use our letter. 15 seconds for you punch in your address. It'll give you your senator and your congressman. You punch it, and it sends a letter straight to them about this. So,
Great. And Dave,
so
you'll put that website address in the chat for us, please.
well, yeah, I'll put the westernjustice.info is the one that'll be on. It's not up. I'm currently working. We because these people that I work with, and they're the best data guys in the country, are so they love what we do so much. They're donating a $30,000 subscription of this thing to us to be able to use. So please use it. Also, our petition is at 24,065. It is by far, I mean, the next one down's probably got 1,000 signatures on it. This matters. I don't care who you are. If you send this, you can take this data or this petition and screenshot it and show whoever you want. But we should have 224,000 people on this petition. Please go sign it. Tell everybody to go sign it. This petition that helps with this is going to be a tool that we use, and is the almost 20 years I've been dealing with DC. When I bring something like this to them, they go, holy crap, that's a lot of people, because that's right now, you think about that, that's 3 times the comments they got in May on the new rule.
David, that's a subject real close to my heart, and that's why it's so important. With about 150,000 people in the equine industry here in the state of Colorado, we can't get 1,000 people to become members of our horse council. We want to start bringing this stuff to you again, but we need to have numbers. When we go down to the state legislature here, they want to know how many members. And I said, it's not so much about members, it's about who is in our state. And they said that doesn't count. We want to see name, facts, and figures. So that's a very good point. So that's why we're doing this, so that you all can be aware of it and you can get involved with it. Now, we do have another comment here. The expanded liability concerns has arena facility owners concerned too. One county facility here is recommended no horse events. And that comes from a very good source in Kansas. So this is
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, that's a huge concern. I mean, even with, that's one of the concerns that the Fort Worth Stock Show was worried about, and they're right there, their office is right there in Will Rogers where they do it, and they're worried about that kind of stuff. Everybody is worried about that, and they should be. And right now, you know, we're standing on the precipice of this whole industry getting totally revamped to where it not only becomes a rich person sport, but it becomes a sport of very even less. I mean, you think about where we're at right now compared to where we were in 2005 and 6, and the amount of horse shows there were, and the amount of events going on back then compared to what there is now. I live in the Northwest. We used to have a quarter horse show every weekend somewhere or two, and they had to do where they had to be 300 or 400 miles apart to put them on. They that is gone. There's hardly any quarter horse shows in the Northwest at all now. So we are we're standing and looking at our own demise if we don't do something about this.
Very good point. And Mark Skelton's point in the chat, as horsemen, we should all encourage horse owners to join Colorado Horse Council as they have access to lobbyists to keep you informed. Did you invite a representative from USDA to participate? Today, no, I have not done that. Would you have made for much more informative, balanced discussion? I agree with that. And this isn't the stop of what we want to do. We want to be able to offer these kind of discussions. But I wanted these folks to participate with us so that you can hear their side. I'm down at the state legislature, and I'm in contact with HSUS on various other animal issues, and we need to take it one step at a time. We really, really do. We need to first get you all informed what's going on. I'm so appreciative of all of you registering with us and coming on today. You need to take a step further. Go to 5 other people that you know and tell them that you are here. There's a movement. There's something happening. This isn't the all end to all the information you're going to be getting or the end to what you can participate in. But we're going to need all of you to help us with many of these things. I'm going to jump to another question, gentlemen. Industry and stakeholders adaptation. How can horse owners, trainers, and organizations prepare for and adapt to new regulations under the Amendment Act? Here's one thing I'll say. The one thing that not only individuals need to get involved with, but many of you that are involved with facilities, you're involved with other organizations, you're involved with barns. Let people know there's something in the air. And it's nothing that you can just take one shovel to. There's something in the air, and they need to start being involved and start being aware of. So, gentlemen, what do you say to industry and stakeholders?
I personally say, like I said earlier, just stay aware of what's going on, but do not poke your head up anytime soon. Wait till this thing gets finalized or something happens. Watch what we're doing. We're going to inform Bill. We're going to inform everything that we're doing. Bill's been really good about communicating with me, and I have contacts in the White House. I have contacts within USDA at the highest level. I've got a meeting. I was going to be with the new undersecretary next week, but he's not confirmed yet, so he's likely not even going to be in DC next week. So I'm probably going to push my meetings off until the week after. These are things that are all very fresh, and one thing we have with Vaden being the undersecretary is he was the senior counsel for Sonny Perdue in the last administration. He's from Tennessee. He knows all about this situation. He's a former judge. He knows how to make sure everything's legal and right. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of trouble, and I don't want to make people I don't want people to not be vigilant, because the big thing for us, just like Bill's talking about with Colorado, everybody has to have their group within their state that is the mobilizer. There's got to be an Aaron Brockovich in everybody's state. I tell people that all the time. I get asked in to do all kinds of different things for Western Justice, and whether it's land rights issues, water rights, grazing issues, all kinds of stuff. But you got to have the Aaron Brockovich in that area. I can't come in as a national organization and start swinging around there trying to tell everybody what to do without having the grassroots. And that's why I wanted to be a part of helping out Colorado and being a part of this conversation with Bill and the Colorado Horse Council, because I want people within each state. But we need to do that all over the country for one. But we also, you know, we're a membership based group too. So we're out there and we're probably, you know, of recent, we're probably closer to 16,000 members right now. We should be, you know, 260,000 members. Hell, there's 200,000 team ropers out there that should be members. So, you know, just alone. So there's, you know, it is a hard thing to get people mobilized, but just know that all of this stuff it's not free to do, but it's also, if you don't want to have to worry about it and you want to be enlightened and know what's going on, we're the only ones that are telling everybody the truth about what's really happening. Scott, I've been so happy to have Scott be a partner on with us since the beginning of the deal in LA 5 years ago. And we have a really good working relationship that way. And we've been able to, we're kind of the grassroots organization. We're not the big organizations. We are the grassroots, and the grassroots is what makes the difference all the time. Everywhere I go, the grassroots is what makes the difference. So
I have a statement here by Randy. I just want to read. Did you read that, Scott?
I did read it.
Okay,
And
go.
it said, Randy put on there, he still doesn't understand the basics of what's being objected to. Here it is. I will restate it again. The original Horse Protection Act was written to keep people from intentionally putting some kind of a chemical substance or a mechanical device on their horse that would make them sore and change the gait. Although change the gait how they walk. That part wasn't in there, but it was written intentionally, putting something on your horse. They have changed it to now, is your horse sore? And if he is, you're in violation of a federal law. And they have outlawed, and I've had people argue with me about this, and I was on that video conference in December, like Dave was, and those two ladies from the USDA that were on there said it. It outlaws putting things like fly spray on your horses or show sheen.
Because it can be used as a masking agent to mask the soaring techniques. So, and on that call, they also talked about how they're supposed to be limited to the limbs of a horse. It used to be the front limbs. Now it's all four, and it has been for a while. But then it went to, now it's to the point where they said if they see something on a horse, they can recommend that the horse be inspected further or not be allowed to show management. Well, if an inspector goes and tells the show management this horse, has a spur mark or has a swell on its hip or from getting kicked by another horse before or something like that, some silly thing like that, or it's rubbed its tail, or you got a horse that rubs its tail in the stall or on the fence or whatever. If they see any of that kind of stuff, or think about a splint bone, a pop splint bone, which has never affected the horse or never will affect the horse as far as its performance or anything, or a scar where they got in the wire. All of that kind of stuff is subject to disqualification. So in other words, you got to keep your horse in a padded stall and make sure, hopefully it doesn't do something stupid and hurt itself to be able to go show it. And that's basically what they're doing.
Thank you. I don't see, they have some comments here about fly spray and stuff like
Well,
that.
I see that one. In the fly spray deal, they're saying it only applies to Tennessee walkers and racking horses, but that's not true. The Horse Protection Act applies to all horses, and it says it 4 times in there. And it also talks about injections and things of that nature. So they can start testing for all that kind of stuff. So there's the biggest problem with this is if you get inspected and you want to go and they disqualify your horse and you want to go fight that, and they take some tests, whether it's for drugs or they do the full gamut, they do all the different things that they do. The parts per million of our testing labs used to be, the withdrawal periods and all of that kind of stuff would go away pretty quick. And they didn't have the testing. Now testing is to a point, and I've got documents on this, to a point where they can go back and they can find very trace amounts of this stuff. So, and for you to prove that it was beyond the threshold, you got to go spend $5,000 with that testing group to go get it tested and figure out where that threshold was. So the money is not it's not even as bad when you just you load up, go to a horse show, buy a stall, do all that, and then you get disqualified. The money is in if you get disqualified and they start doing all that stuff and you try to defend yourself, there's going to be way more money spent to try to get rid of that disqualification or justification for it. And then your horse gets Irish scans. The Irish scan, your horse gets put on a list. You get put on a list. And you got to try to mediate all that through the courts. And then that's where the real money gets spent.
I'm going to make a comment on that same thing about the fly spray. And this is my personal opinion, not trying to be mean. But if you think that is only for the for the Tennessee walking horses and racking horses, then you should ask yourself, why was this rule rewritten?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing a lot here is that, and I think it's what I commend these gentlemen to come on today. We need to know this stuff. We need to be aware of this stuff and how it's written and how it's interpreted. How much regulations do we need? How much do we need? Is it the biggest issue in the world? And I think the other thing is, which is really confusing to me, and either Dave or Scott can help me with this, who's going to make the money on this inspection? Who's going to make the money here? It is not the horse owners. It's not your group. It's not your organization. I don't know, folks. Call me skeptical. Go ahead, call me skeptical. I hear you out there. But, the reasoning behind this just doesn't make sense to me personally. And that's why we're bringing it to you. I'm going to ask this last question. It won't be the last of the conversation. There's a lot of good people out here that I'm seeing faces of. I'm seeing leaders in our organization. I'm seeing a leader in horse identification with us today. I see leaders in the CSU. I recognize a lot of the faces and some of the names, and it's so important that your organizations become part of all this and belong and start moving together on issues. There's a lot of things that can come before us that we don't know about. It happens very quickly, but there's got to be a way for us to start talking and working together. And whether this becomes a once every quarter conversation or needs to be a once every month, I don't know, David, Scott, you guys are going to have to tell me. I can put up any banner anywhere, but at the same time, we need to start talking about it. We need to start organizing it. And that's why, again, I go back to our Equine City Hall. If you're part of a group, belong to that Equine City Hall. You can talk to the group outside of the Facebooks, outside of all the advertisement. At our Equine City Hall, your group can become a member. Your members can become a member of your group so that we can keep the dialogue and communication going. Future policy considerations. What additional steps should be taken to further strengthen horse welfare protection beyond these amendments? Do you guys have any suggestions on that? And then we'll figure out what we need to be doing. All of us need to be doing about this one.
One of the things we did in LA that was very successful was we sat down. We had a coalition where we sat down. We had all the different major organizations in rodeo, and we sat down. We've been on Zoom calls once a week for almost 5 years, almost every week, but for 5 years, every Tuesday we have a Zoom call with this coalition. The main players are PBR, PRCA, California Circuit Finals, the Bill Pickett All Black Rodeo, and the Charros. So we've had this group together for 5 years, and we've set all the policy in LA of how we're going to speak, what we're going to say, how we're going to do it when we go to these meetings to meet with congressional leaders. We've done a fabulous job of it. We've worked hand in hand, and you got to remember, these organizations are competing organizations, so they don't generally work together on things like this. So we've done a great job of bringing everybody together and doing that. And with that, we have an animal welfare packet that we hand each one of them, each one of these politicians. We give them all the statistics, all of that. We've done email after email and educated everybody in the LA City Council. So with that, that's one thing that the horse industry has not done. And there was a question earlier about why are speed events and the why are speed events exempt? Because and I'm just going to say it out loud, the American Horse Council is run by the Jockey Club. The Jockey Club has always been the main player, and they have lobbied and lobbied and lobbied to have speed events not be a part of any of this stuff. And that is why, and rodeo did the same thing. Rodeo was able to do it, and they've been working on it since the 70s. I mean, they went and got rodeo exempted. And in the Western horse world, rodeo is the only thing that's been exempted from the Horse Protection Act from the beginning because of their lobbying and because they've done a really good job over the years of showing that their animal welfare standards keep going and going and going up instead of down. And they're not, they're showing that they changed the rules. They're making sure that politicians and USDA know that they're doing all this stuff for animal welfare. And they've done a really good job. The rest of the horse industry, especially the Western horse world, has not done a very good job of that. And we all have, like I told all of them at a meeting I had in Fort Worth, that they need to get all of their animal welfare facts together, their rules, and also all of their what they do at these shows with stewards, with all the regulations that they have on their own, and prove that they do not need government oversight from the USDA. And that's where our industry lacks and our world lacks, is we have not done that. But nobody has ever put that out there. And the American Horse Council didn't do it. That should have been the guiding light, and the people that did all of that and organized all of that 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And they didn't. And now we're sitting on this situation. But, you go to conspiracy theories. If this regulation went through, then I look at who benefits from it. The USDA benefits, the APHIS, that horse program benefits from it because they're going to have a lot more employees in their deal. They're going to have to bring a lot more people on, which gives whoever's on top a higher GS rating. That's how government's built. That's how all these government agencies are built. And to think to stick your head in the sand and think that's not what's going on or on their mind, it sure as hell is. And if we go look at other groups, if this thing goes into play, they become a lot more relevant. And you're going to have somebody in DC doing things. The Western, in my opinion, with all I've done over the last 19 years, the Western horse world does not need full-time lobbyists in DC. We need DC out of our world. And then when something starts to arise, we already stopped anywhere from 15 to 50. I think the most we did was 51 bills in a year by just making phone calls to somebody that's our friend on the committee. And we get that person to either stop it, strip it, or just totally get rid of it out of committee. So it never comes out of committee that way. That is why they had to go to this regulatory rule, which doesn't go through Congress, doesn't go through a committee. It's exactly what the Chevron deference decision that the Supreme Court made last year was about. was these arbitrary people that were the experts in the industry, but they're not. I mean, Dr. Reiner, I don't know. I can't find where he's a veterinarian. I can't find where he's ever practiced as a veterinarian, but he's a veterinarian and he's in charge of APHIS. As far as I can find, he worked at APHIS before he was a veterinarian. So that is, that to me is our number one goal, is to make sure they stay out of there. And we have a way to do that.
You do have a way to do it. And I think it also speaks to, years ago, my first American Horse Council meeting was in back 1978. And back then we had 50 horse councils. And just a few years ago, I was chairman of the Coalition of State Horse Councils. And I believe we have the chairman of the State Horse Councils with us today. And she will tell you the same thing as I will. Horse councils are not effective now because we don't have people supporting them. We need to put that plan together, stay in touch with each other so that we know what's going on in Los Angeles, so that we know what's going on in Maine, if there's anything going on in Maine, or in Colorado, or Wyoming, or whatever. We need to start building. Excuse me, my lights go out because I'm not moving. So, excuse me, I'm not in the dark. It's just that my lights go out with the motion detector. We need to become more together. We need to become more involved, and join your horse councils, join your community horse groups. Let's all make us strong. Let's all keep the communication going, because I know we can do it. There's a couple other questions here. Lizzie, I think your question, are there plans within the equine community to proactively stop any future law or amendments from reaching these extreme measures, such as proposing our own laws to protect our industry? Gentlemen, address that. I'll give you my opinion after you address that one.
Well, Scott knows about what's going on. There's a group of some of the associations who put together, and they didn't get all of them. There's some that are opposed to it, but it sounds like they've hired, and I don't know this for sure, but they've hired a group to lobby on their behalf. And that's something that's going. We are going our direction, which is Western Justice is pushing for, an amendment to the Horse Protection Act through Congress, either to totally get rid of it, or because it's obviously unnecessary and they need to go back to policing their own. Those are the directions we're going. So yes, there's concerted efforts from two different directions, I know of at least, that are working on that.
Everybody, even Dave's group and the other group, Western Justice and the other group, are all working towards the same thing. They're doing it from different directions, but we want the Horse Protection Act rewritten by Congress, and it needs to be strictly a definition of soring and not, is your horse sore? Those are way two different things. So.
Right. And Amy has a good comment here. She says, state laws can only be more restrictive. They can't be less restrictive than federal law. And I think I've learned that a lot lately, that you don't want to.
That's what I'm afraid of here in Colorado, Bill.
I am afraid of it in Colorado. I think personally, uniting, be on top of it. Don't give anybody a reason to write a law. Laws come from all different areas, especially in the equine industry. We are so divided. It could be someone that really only cares about the Mustang horse. It could be somebody that only works with the therapeutic riding horse, or the show horse industry. There is no difference when it comes to horses and laws. And I think that's what this all proves. By letting this pass, or not being aware of it, or not standing up and saying something or doing something about it, is just negligence on our parts. And we can't do that. We need to be responsible. We need responsible horse enthusiasts. You know, how many of these people are writing these laws? And I think it was pointed out by one of the comments that even owns a horse, that rides a horse, that's been on a merry-go-round lately. It's really not unusual that lawmakers or proposed laws come from people that just think it's a good idea. And especially in our state of Colorado, our laws really are written for the Front Range. And if you haven't been down there lately, let me know when you want to come. I'll drive because I pay for the $20 parking anyway. Things are happening at our Capitol, and we need to be aware of it all the time.
And I'm going to add to that, Bill. They are, and they're happening at every Capitol. Unfortunately, I get to keep track of all that kind of stuff. And I've heard this word used on this meeting, and you know how I get annoyed at catchphrases, Bill. But I've heard the word stakeholders. We need to make sure that we know the difference between a stakeholder and a stockholder. Because the people who actually have skin in the game and are trying to make some kind of a living or something like that from using their horses, those are the stockholders. The stakeholders are people who just are interested. And we need to make sure that we are taking into account the difference between the two. And I'm going to add this, and I'll try to be quiet after this. One thing everybody needs to start paying attention to, and I know it's happened to Dave, and it's happened to me for the last year, because I've been warning about this since May, that something was coming down from USDA that was going to affect the whole horse industry. And people looked at me like I was Chicken Little saying the sky was falling. Pay attention to people who might actually know what's going on. You don't have to necessarily agree with them, but you might want to listen to them once in a while.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that a little bit too, Bill, that, you know, I've been talking about this for a long time, and everybody, like I've said to you before, everybody looked at me like I needed to put my tinfoil hat back on and get back in my basement. And we've stayed strong and stayed pushing because we know what's out there. We know what's going on. And like I said, words matter. I know how to read through rules and bills to see what words and I was a good Marine. I know my enemy, and my enemies want to get rid of us. They want us to be done with all of this, and they don't like it. And they put little wording in certain spots that get bastardized, for lack of a better word, into being a rule through rulemaking that is, you know, will end our industry. We've seen it in the livestock trucking deal. We've seen it in the ELD mandate. We've seen all of these different things that have gone on. And how many times are we going to see this stuff and not realize that this is what's coming? And if you spend as much time as I have and Scott on looking at all this stuff and dealing with all these people, you start to see all the little innuendos that come into those. And my job generally, when a bill is passed and we're okay with it or amenable to it, my job always comes in the rulemaking part, because it's not your Congress, your elected officials that do the rulemaking. It is the unelected bureaucrats like Dr. Reiner that go start doing the rulemaking on these things. So you have to really pay attention to those things and be able to be in the room when they start doing it and call BS on them. Say, wait, pump the brakes, guys. You can't do that. So that's always my biggest thing is the rulemaking portion of this stuff is what we have to do.
Exactly. Good comments here, Mark. Nice comment. We need to unite. We'll all pay the price if we don't. What's the timeline? We're going to talk a little bit here at the Horse Council, see how we can become more active in keeping you, because you've registered for this, and others that registered for it that aren't here. We're going to have this recording if people want to listen to it. But we'll have a plan of action. And if you want to be part of these plan of actions, if you want to be part of what we're doing, what we should be doing. Because I have your emails, I'm going to be sending you a form that allows you to get on a committee. And I know how committees work, but we just, we used to be much stronger when we had committees. We used to be much stronger when we got together and when we discussed these things. As once somebody said, you don't have to agree with Mr. Little up there. Oh, Scott, but we got to go ahead and at least come together and have these conversations. I don't know, having Scott on the board, and he's a government relation person, has been very, very helpful. He keeps my ear bent more than you know. And my few conversations, I don't usually have a timer on my phone, but that David has more information than I know of anybody on this topic and other topics. And it's great stuff. It's good stuff. We need to get more involved. I'm going to send you out some information about how you can be involved. I plead with you to get involved with a lot of your local clubs, and then ask your local clubs to come and unite with us at the Colorado Horse Council. And do you have any individual questions you want to ask now?
I have some. I want to comment on Carmen's comment. So during the comment period, you can go back on our social media, and that's where we do most of our stuff because it's basically free unless we're boosting a post. And we did spend some money to try to get people to comment on that, and we put out some posts about getting people to do it. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram or any of those, please go on and follow us, and you'll see all this stuff come up. Go look at it every once in a while, because if you're not paying any attention to it or don't click on it, you're going to get off our algorithm. But if you can also go on our website and you can, sign up for you don't even, if you don't want to become a member, you can just sign up to be on the email list. And we don't do a lot of emails, but we do important emails. So if you see a Western Justice email, it's going to be something important. So
And I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, Dave. And there's no forwarding on, because he sends me emails. There's no forwarding of any other thing. Everything is from Western Justice.
yeah,
So
I've being in touch with these data guys that I am, the top campaigners in the country. They keep bugging me about selling my list, but they know I'm not doing it. We've got 40 plus thousand emails in our email list, and it's growing constantly every day. And we get obviously a lot more people that just sign up for our emails than we get members. But we do, when we put something out, it's generally something of substance that we need people to see or act on. So we will, if you go on westernjustice.info, you'll find it, and you'll find a way to get on our email list, and just do that, because we don't, like I said, we don't sell our email list, and we're not going to, we don't need to, and we're not going to. So you're safe to do that, and you'll get all the alerts if you pay attention to it.
And any other closing comments from you, gentlemen?
yeah, I do.
I know you would.
Because what happened last year is a few of the organizations that represent horse industry, all told, all across the US. People at the very top knew a little bit. I'm going to reiterate that USDA kept everybody in the dark until October. But a few people at the tops of every organization knew what was going on, or had an inkling of what might come down the pike. You all should get a hold of every organization you're a member of, whether it be your Cattlemen's Association, Livestock Association, or whoever it is, and ask them if they're aware of this. And if they're not, you need to hold their feet to the fire a little bit and tell them, hey, get involved and let everybody in the whole thing, in the whole organization know. Because that's the only way this is getting stopped.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. I also want to mention, as we just reminded here in the chat that was sent to me, we at the Horse Council do not sell your information either. We don't market it. We never have, whether it's been through Expo or anything else like that. We don't sell your information. We just ask that you tell us who you are and what you want to do and how to get involved with you. And I want to make a personal comment. For the last 3 months, this office has been hugely busy. I can say that word now. It's allowed, right? Hugely busy. But we've been really busy. And when I say we're talking about one person, and one phone number comes in, one phone number goes out, my cell phone, and 3 email sources. If I don't get back to you right away, I apologize. Please don't stop. And please don't think that I don't think what you want or what you need is not important. Every horse owner, every horse club, every idea and suggestion is taken to heart. So please give us a call. Text me is best. If I'm not returning the text, put it in an email and then we'll get back to you. But with this group here, I'm going to form a group of you. I'm going to try to keep you together and try to keep you informed. So with that being said, I have contacted the Yes, there are a lot of people working on lawsuits. There's a lot of people working on lobbying. Please reach out to us, become a member, become an account holder at the Equine City Hall. And I look forward to working with all of you on this matter and other matters in the future. I'm not putting anybody on lists. You registered for this. You are part of it. So you're part of our HPA list. And this will be the list that we communicate to directly. Okay?
I gotta throw one more plug out before we go, Bill.
You better.
So I have an Emmy Award, my first documentary.
Oh yeah.
Emmy Award winner. And it's the real life version of Yellowstone. It's about two 7th-generation ranches that corrupt developers and politicians are trying to take over. It's a real story. It's called The Great Pocatello Land Grab. It's going to be available on our website. We just had our premiere, and all week they've been almost totally sold out at the theater in Pocatello. So,
maybe we need that showing in Denver. Work on it.
well, I'm going to put it. That's a lot of work for me to do all that. So I got plenty of other things to do. So we're just gonna we're gonna figure out how to get it on. We're getting it on our website.
Perfect.
Behind the paywall so we can get rolling. But everybody go watch it, please.
All right. Thank you all. I've got your name. I've got your emails. We'll keep you as best informed as we can and keep on working together because we always work better together and we're stronger together. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye now.